So this next topic, and these topics just kind of come to us as we're talking about life together, but something that's really been standing out to me in my work lately as I process through things that come up is it's really been standing out to me how you can't have intimacy with an unconscious person. You can have connection, and sometimes you can have really good connection for quite a while, but you can't have intimacy, because if you think about intimacy is self-confrontation and disclosure. So it's the person, and we can talk more about this in another time, but self-intimacy is the ability to go inside and say, this is how I feel, this is what I think, this is what I need, this is what I want, and process all aspects of the core self. And I can break down the core self in another talk, but what I think makes up the core self, and they can go inside, and a self-intimate person can go inside and access that and share. And you get two people doing that, and you're going to have intimacy. Well, a person who's unconscious, they don't know themselves, or they may know parts, but they can't sustain it, because it's like driving a car on cruise control versus steering and being an active driver. And so they're on cruise control. So when you go to connect to them, it just kind of depends on their mood, or, if they're in a good place or not, or so you can have connection and it can be positive, but it can't sustain itself. And so I think that confuses a lot of people, because they have these positive connections, but then it never feels really fulfilling, or they still feel lonely, or they wonder why it doesn't keep going. What's your thoughts on that, hon?
Well, I think, we're just doing this free form.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes to mind to me, and this, these are the kinds of things that you and I have, I think, some really good discussions around. But when you're describing these characteristics, I hear male, female. I hear men described as being inaccessible, not in touch with their feelings. And I see women just all over that kind of stuff. And I know that you've described before that many times in couples therapy, you feel like the women come in with this feeling of superiority, that they're more evolved than the man, and so it must be all the man's fault. Mm-hmm. Their troubles are all with the man. So I think, part of what we want to do here is make therapy more accessible. And so I know that you've encountered that issue before.
Yeah.
So how can a man come into therapy and feel like he's being measured truthfully and fairly?
Well, I don't want to limit it to therapy. I want...
Well, sure, in a relationship.
Yeah. I would say let's keep it in a relationship. I mean, yes, I think because, men do their feelings. They don't typically talk about their feelings, right?
Which is why anger is a common
right
outlet for men's feelings.
Their feelings are put into action. And
they're also shamed, their feelings.
Well, sure. Yeah. But
that's why it's got to be anger. that one's okay. Get mad at it.
Oh.
We'll win the game if everyone gets mad enough, So I'm just saying, men, how strongly I feel about some of these issues. And I think men get chopped off at the legs a lot when you get into this arena of feelings and couples situations and dealing with women. And that probably sounds bad, but I mean, just, a lot of guys just feel like they don't measure up.
Or they're not equally respected.
Sure.
Because they do it differently. And I think, a big part of intimacy is knowing your partner. and your partner isn't going to do it the way you do it, and that's the chemistry of it. You don't want a man acting like you. You would lose all attraction to him. You want the chemistry of him being himself and how he expresses it. So very often men do their feelings. They're busy putting feelings into action. So, there's lots of things Steve will do for me, like make sure I'm warm, or, get me a drink, or a blanket, or, ask me if I'm comfortable. And he's always taking care of things when we go somewhere, and that's his love in action. And I would rather he was doing those actions for me instead of sitting around talking about, how he feels and not doing actions. So I think women they've often from little girl on have been taught the words versus little boys. Women have been taught the words to feelings, so they become more verbal. And what was my point?
Developmentally, boys aren't
right. So
on the same track, and forget about all of the tendencies just from testosterone and
right.
everything else, but societal conditioning. Yes.
And so when they go to talk about something, women are really verbal about how they feel, and a man is kind of downloading his actions that he's done to identify what those feelings are attached to the action. And they view that as, well, see, he's just not in touch with his feelings, and that's far from the truth. And if you really listen and watch the actions of a man that really loves you, he has a lot of depth and a lot of intimacy within himself that he expresses to you. But if you're looking at it from a tunnel vision of it's going to look like how I do it, you're going to miss it. And yes, on a side note, I have experienced a lot of initial arrogance with women who come in as a couple, and they just assume that they are right and they have the most accurate perspective of what's going on. And it's kind of hard to break that down and get them to show the ability to really truly listen and understand what's happening for him.
Yeah, but I don't mean to let men off the hook in regard to finding their words, because it's worth the work to get to develop that intimacy that is fulfilling beyond physical intimacy, but it takes a lot of work. Just like you're pointing out that maybe women need to work at appreciating the men in their lives, and being more perceptive of how they are showing intimacy. But at the same time, men definitely need to do their work and grow beyond what society expects of them. And
that's kind of another talk, is what is your work as a human being, right? That's a topic all in and of itself. But you get two people that are committed to really knowing and growing and finding their highest self. That's a couple that has a lot of movement and a lot of chemistry. And because that's what intimacy is. And
so I'm glad you said that, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, how do we connect a bridge between connection and intimacy? I think the bridge between them is openness and communication. What would you say?
Well, bringing it back full circle, the connection piece is hit or miss, right?
Is that more about chemistry and
Yeah, it's like
just compatibility?
going to a party and having a really great time and doing a lot of connecting with people, and or you like to go on hikes together, or you have things you can connect on, which again, if that's sustainable, that creates intimacy. However, if it's with an unconscious person, there's too much missing.
It sounds, this might be an inaccurate correlation, but is it like the difference between a friend and a lover? Like a friend you've got a connection with, but a lover you should have also intimacy?
You can have intimacy with really good friends.
Okay. I guess I'm making the man mistake of sex and intimacy.
It has everything to do with how well does that person know who they are, right?
How does the person know who the other person is?
No.
Okay.
So
you're going back to your point that the individual needs to have intimacy with their self before they can project that and have intimacy with someone else.
Before they can share that with someone else.
What percentage of men do you think just naturally have that? I think a small amount of men. What do you think?
No, I think maybe back in our parents' generation when there was so much role, relationships where you played a role.
Mm-hmm.
But I think men, they're highly intelligent. They want to seek out knowledge and understanding and awareness, and they care about being a high quality person, and they have the same drive as women do. It's just, are you in an environment that nurtures that, or to your point, do you feel shamed or criticized or less than? Okay, that was a topic that's just, we've been shooting back and forth.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time, hopefully.